This is the new Microsoft Surface Pro 7. If you're looking for a computer that's a great form factor, super portable, fun to take notes on, this isn't a bad choice. But if you're looking for something to draw on, you might want to pass. Hi, my name is Brad. I review tech for creative professionals. You know, illustrators, designers, people who are still rocking the Intuos 3. Yeah, I see you over there. Last week I added a page to my website where I list out all of the reviews I've done of Windows tablets that come with pens. I've also added a page for iPads as well, so if you're doing research, check that out. Today I'm taking a look at the, what am I taking a look at again? Right! The Surface Pro 7. It's easy to forget about the 7 because of all the hoopla around the other products Microsoft has announced this fall at their Surface event. Cool new products like the Surface Laptop 2, the Surface Pro X, the Surface Neo, the Surface Duo, the Surface Earbud Bobbins, and the, something else. There was something else. Oh right, the Surface Pro 7. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. It's understandable. This is an incremental upgrade, but it's an upgrade to a tried and true form factor that Microsoft has refined for years now. Last year's Surface Pros were using Intel's 8th generation processor. This year, we see a jump up to the 10th generation. And we're getting that USB-C port that a lot of people have been asking for. It's replacing the mini display port that used to be on the old Surface Pros. One thing to note about that USB-C port is it's not Thunderbolt. The screen still looks great. It's 2,736 pixels by 1,824 pixels, and the build quality of the Surface line in general is fantastic. The hinge on the back that holds the thing up is still one of my favorite parts. It's stiff enough to stand on its own and well at any position. The full weight of your hand will push down on it when you're drawing on it, but it's not gonna slam down really quickly, or it's not gonna lose its position when it's just sitting on a table. I just love this form factor. With a type cover on it, it's very thin. It's very light. With a laptop, I feel like I needed to put it in a bag and take care of it. This, I can just carry it around like it's a notebook. Battery life is still really good. I didn't really time it for my use, but I'd say I'd easily get about 8 hours or a full day out of it. The only real downside, and this is a personal preference thing, is that the design is starting to look dated. And maybe the reason it looks dated is because we do have the Surface Pro X sitting right next to it. The design hasn't changed in years. The bezels are wider than what you see on most devices today, and the back looks kind of plasticky. Along with the fancy new USB-C port all the kids are talking about is a standard USB port. Also a headphone jack and an SD card slot and a charging hole. I don't know if that's the official name of that slot, but I kind of like it. Don't sleep on that charging hole though. I am a big fan of magnetic power connectors. They've saved my laptop on more than one occasion. And the mini power brick that it has an extra USB port on it. It doesn't send data to your computer, but you can charge your phone with it, so that's cool. Another cool thing Microsoft is doing with their computers is this idea of quick on. This is something I've mentioned in my previous reviews in videos where I've compared like an iPad to a Surface product, and there is that just slight delay when you're toggling on a Windows computer that you don't get on a phone or an iPad. I love that Microsoft is working on this. It doesn't seem like a big deal in the whole scheme of things. Who cares if you have to wait a full second for your computer to turn on? But all these little user experience things add up over time, and I'm so glad to see that Microsoft is not just working on them, they're making them a priority and something that they talk about in their press conferences. I like to review the configuration I feel comfortable recommending to artists and designers. This time, it's the second one up from the bottom. So I'm reviewing the configuration that has the i5 processor, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and 120 gigs of storage. This one starts at $899. If you want to go higher, great, but I wouldn't feel comfortable using something lower than this, especially since the entry level only has 4 gigs of RAM and upgrading these things really isn't an option. Also, the matte black version from last year makes its return, but it's still only available at the higher end price points. I should point out that if you want the pen and the type cover, those don't come with the base price, so make sure you factor in the cost of those into your purchase. And yes, you can use a Windows tablet without a keyboard, but if you want to be efficient, you're probably going to want one. Side note, if you want to jump up and get 256 gigs of storage, basically double the size of your drive, it's an extra $300. Not even Apple charges that much for a drive upgrade. Here's a pro tip. Use the SD port along the back and pop in some cheap storage there instead. This is the same pen as last year, the last couple years actually, and one of the great things about this pen is that it works across a whole array of Surface devices, and is backwards compatible with old Surface devices dating way back to the Surface Pro 3. That's very consumer friendly. If you buy a Surface pen, it will work on almost any Surface device. Microsoft sells the Surface Pen for $100. It sounds like a lot of money. However, I would not buy one directly from Microsoft. Definitely check out Amazon. You can find them as low as like $35. What I don't love is the pen itself. It's just not that good. There's a lot of wave to the lines you draw. Sometimes a pen has wave and it doesn't really affect your drawing. This pen does. Hard to do really clean line work without using a lot of stroke straightener, and the more stroke straightener you get, the less accurate you are, or the more lag there is on the pen. It just doesn't feel as natural. The initial activation rate is pretty high too. Pressing very lightly on the screen just isn't going to register a line. Once you do get a line going, the pressure is pretty good, and the pressure curve itself is smooth. It's just that line wave that really gets to me. If you're wondering if a third-party pen would help, don't hold your breath. I tried out the Wacom Bamboo Ink Plus, and it felt a little different, but it had pretty much the same problems. It's the underlying tech. Microsoft uses N-Trig on all their Surface devices. That's the problem, not the specific pen itself. The reason they use N-Trig, because it does one thing extraordinarily well: it is great for palm rejection. If you want to use it to do edits or handwriting and take notes, it works great for that. Something Microsoft has done with their pen is they've given it a rubbery tip. Plastic tip styluses tend to slide around on smooth glass screens like this one, and the rubber tip gives you a little bit more resistance. It doesn't feel natural, it doesn't feel like writing on paper, but it doesn't feel bad either, and it's better than drawing with a hard plastic tipped pen. As a side note, the Surface Pro X has a redesigned pen. I'm really excited to get my hands on that in the coming weeks and see what has changed and if there have been any improvements. The Pro X is the first Surface Pro running on an ARM processor. Most apps have been updated to work on ARM, but not all have. Adobe says they're working on it, but I'm not sure where they are with that yet. We'll find out in a few weeks when I get my hands on the X. For people who want the Surface form factor but are not quite ready to take that jump, the 7 really fits that bill. If you have a Surface Pro 4 or 5 or 6, the 7 probably isn't the upgrade you're looking for. Pros. I love the Surface hardware. I love carrying it around. I love typing on it. I love the screen. I love the way the pen magnetically snaps to the side. This is, like, personally for me, one of my favorite form factors of any computer out there. This gets compared to the iPad Pro all the time because of the Apple Pencil, and they kind of look the same. They look like tablets you snap on a keyboard. But the big benefit here is that you are running full Windows. Anything you can run on Windows, you can run on this thing. So you could run animation apps, you could run video editing apps, you can run 3D apps. If you want to run some of those things, you might not want to use this computer. You might want to use something with more oomph or a better graphics card. However, you can run all these programs on a Surface Pro. The great thing about the Surface Pro is it is a laptop replacement. In fact, it is a laptop, just in a slightly different form factor. That's something that's harder to say about the iPad, at least for me personally, and what I needed to use for the iPad is more of a companion device. The iPad can't replace my entire computer, at least right now. The con for me is definitely the pen. I know when my very first review was a Surface Pro 3, I liked the pen at the time because I was so used to really bad iPad styluses. But time has changed and hardware has gotten better and better. We now have the Apple Pencil. We have a lot of Wacom alternatives out there. We have other Windows tablets that are using Wacom's tech that are just better to draw with. Check out my website if you want to see links to some of those reviews. That's the thing that's holding me back. It's that N-Trig technology that's driving this whole thing. If you're not an artist, if you're not an illustrator, if you're using this for note-taking, handwriting, editing documents, and that sort of thing, this works really well. The only thing I would mention there is you might want to go with the Surface Pro X because you know that those core Microsoft apps are going to run great on that. Overall, the Surface Pro 7 feels like a stopgap. It seems like Microsoft just wanted something out there for people who weren't quite ready to take the jump to the X yet. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in a couple of days.